This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
You're a pumpkin.
I'm a pumpkin, a big orange pumpkin.
A big orange pumpkin. And were there a lot of children out there?
Not so much.
No? Did you get a lot of candy?
Yeah, I got a lot of candy. Mommy's eating all the chocolate bars.
Well, tell Mommy that's your candy, honey.
Okay.
Tell her.
Stop eating all my chocolate bars, Mommy. Daddy's sick.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours, I am your host. I am your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X-Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, the Starcom Radio Network, Digital Broadcast Network, and Digital Satellite Network, and now on the Paranormal Radio Network. There we go. Got that one in there as well. Worldwide toll-free 800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our main website, where you can listen to the X-Zone 724-365, as well as the live broadcast, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Halloween is coming up. It's just around the corner. Today is October the 21st. It is Wednesday. So 1 week from Saturday, you're going to have all the little kids coming to your front doors if you live in North America or any other part of the world that celebrates this pagan ritual. And they're begging for candies. That's right. I believe that Halloween is sponsored by the Worldwide Association of Dentists. That's right. I really believe that. The dentists every year get together with the candy manufacturers and say, you know what? We need more sugar in the candies. The kids are not getting enough cavities. Oh, listen, if we can have UFO conspiracies, Bigfoot conspiracies, ghost conspiracies, government conspiracies, if Donald Trump can run for president of the United States, then I can say there's a conspiracy on Halloween that is being perpetrated by the dentists of the world. I know. What can I say? My guest this hour is a gentleman we've had the pleasure of having on the show a number of times. He is an author, and some of the books that he has written include Mystery of Reincarnation, The Case for Ghosts, Lessons from Atlantis, UFOs, The Great Debate, 2012, Extinction or Utopia, The Great Airship of 1897, The Case for Reincarnation, Phantoms of the Sky, Serpent Gigante, Nightman, Dragon Soldiers, Friend of God, and of course I'm talking about Jeff Allen DANELEK. And Jeff, welcome back to the X-Zone, my friend. How are things in Writerland?
Well, thanks for having me on, Rob. They're doing just great. I just wanted to wish you and your listeners a happy Back to the Future Day.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's Back to the Future Day.
Absolutely.
That's right.
It's the day that with 30 years in the future.
Marty McFly.
Here we are.
Marty McFly.
That's right.
Yeah.
I was out on my hoverboard this afternoon, flying around. That working out, and so it was amazing how accurate that was.
Yeah, I thought I saw a picture of you on your hoverboard on CNN when somebody took video footage of a human flying. So, see, I was right, Craig. It was Jeff.
Absolutely, yeah. That doesn't prove you're not crazy, but in that case, you weren't.
Well, listen, speaking about Back to the Future, what did you think of that series? I loved it. I think that Michael J. Fox did a fantastic job with Christopher Lloyd. That was a great combination.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. That was good light entertainment. You can still take your kids to it all this time later, and it seems timeless. It seems like it's still valid today, even all these years later. So it's kind of I think they finally did it right. Once in a while, Hollywood gets it right.
Once in a while. And in fact, another biggie for Hollywood is the new Star Wars movie that the trailer hit yesterday, and apparently so many people watched the trailer that it crashed the studio's servers.
Well, I have to confess, I'm already at the parking lot waiting to buy my ticket for the December showing.
Oh, is that why we've caught you on your cell phone?
That's right. I'm going to be first in line. There's nobody here yet, but somebody's going to show up, I know, and then they're going to try to get ahead of me, and all hell's going to break loose.
So, what does your wife think of you sitting in a parking lot on with your hoverboard ready, and there you are? You're getting ready to buy your ticket. Do I hear any?
She left me years ago.
Oh, jeez. Well, her loss is the world's gain, my friend.
Exactly.
Listen, Halloween is coming up, my friend. How did you celebrate Halloween, or how do you celebrate Halloween? Because, look at all the books you've written. The Case for Ghosts, that's a great one for Halloween. Case for Reincarnation, that's a great one for Donald Trump. Dragon Soldiers, these are great books for this time of year. What was your inspiration for getting into writing this genre that you do, right, Jeff?
Well, I've always been interested in that kind of stuff. I used to love the Godzilla movies and all that kind of stuff. I used to love to read about the Loch Ness Monster and the Bermuda Triangle and all these things when I was growing up. And for some reason, I never outgrew it. It just kind of stayed with me, and I thought, well, maybe I could actually make a living writing about this stuff. So one thing led to another, and voila, I got some stuff published, and it's been going. It's been a lot of fun ever since.
What is the favorite topic that you write about?
Whoa, I don't know. It kind of varies. There's times when I'm really into one thing or another. Especially when I'm doing research on a book. You're really kind of concentrating on it at the exclusion of everything else. I'm still looking for someone to market my ghost book. I've expanded it. I've added ghost, photographs that people have sent me, and so I think that's kind of the thing I actually deal with the most. I get a lot of emails from people wanting me to tell them whether this is a ghost or not. But that's the one that's had the biggest, I guess, the longest legs that stayed with me the most. But really, there's no one thing that I concentrate on. I'm kind of all over the board and just enjoy a lot of it.
So tell me, in your opinion, what are ghosts?
I believe that a ghost is a disembodied personality. It's basically the essence of who you are, but you're just not attached to a physical form anymore. And you're able to, you sort of transcended it. You're sort of moving around independently of the body that we all have now, and not necessarily a good thing, by the way, but I think that's what it is.
Now, sometimes I get guests on the show who talk about ghosts, and the one line I cannot for the life of me understand is when they say, well, a ghost may not know they're dead.
I think that might be possible with children. Very young people who have died suddenly, and they may take some time for them to understand what's happening. But I suspect for most adults, I think you kind of know that you're dead. It's kind of a hard thing to miss. It's like losing an arm and you just didn't really notice it. So I don't really buy that, but I think that they stay not because they don't know they're dead, but largely because they have some other reason to hang out here. They're not ready to move on. They're afraid of moving on. There's something here that they're attached to that they still want to interact with.
Right.
But I think most of them know they're dead. I'm pretty sure of that.
The movie Ghost, Patrick Swayze, Whoopi Goldberg, how close was that movie to reality based on the research that you've done over the years, Jeff?
I think it was great entertainment. I don't really believe that ghosts have that degree of interaction where they can, communicate with people, find their murderer, protect their loved one from harm, that kind of a thing. I suspect that ghosts live in kind of a twilight world where time isn't really relevant to them. So for them to, Patrick Swayze basically just hung out in the same time frame he was in before. He was doing all the same things he did before. He was even stuck in the same shirt, for the whole thing. So
not to mention the same pants and underwear and socks.
I know he must have been pretty gamey after a couple of months, but I do believe that ghosts do try to interact with us, but I don't know if many of them can do it to that degree. And I also think that once you're dead, your priorities change. Things that were really important to you when you were alive are probably not that big a deal to you. Once you pass over.
The researchers who investigate near-death experiences or afterlife communication, compared to the researchers who, and I'm using the word researcher here very loosely because I think that when push comes to shove, when you take all the crap out of the internet, there's going to be very few so-called researchers out there. The stories are totally different when it comes to what the researchers of past, near-death experience and other side communications compared to the ghost investigators or researchers is. If both sides were telling the truth, wouldn't their stories be the same?
Well, I think you've got the people who are just looking for sensational stories, and then you've got people who are genuine researchers. So, yeah, you're right. There should be some collaboration. But on the other hand, just as you have very many different types of people, different personalities, you might have fairly different things happen to different people after they die based upon their understanding and their experiences.
You hear about all these stories. Now, I'll give you an example. I won't just take that back. Here in Niagara, about 30 minutes away from our studios and about 20 minutes from where I live, is a little village called Niagara-on-the-Lake that touts itself as Canada's most haunted village. Now, it was the scene of Fort George, the main fort during the War of 1812 here in Canada. Every pub, every bar, every hotel in Niagara-on-the-Lake has a ghost. And when I was working on Creepy Canada, of course, we featured a number of the places, the Angel Inn, we did the Anchorage Inn, and so on and so forth. And then we decided to do research here on the X Zone for a show that we did on Fort George. So we did it. I had my research department do a thorough investigation background. We got the old plans for the fort. We interviewed several people at Canada Parks. And then I went out on this ghost walk with the curator of Niagara Ghost Walks. And as we're walking through the fort, people were saying, "Oh, I heard that. Did you hear the violin? Oh, did you see the ghost over there?" And, this was about an hour and a half walk. It was a beautiful moonlit night. It was perfect for a ghost walk. So after everybody left and the curator was asking me how I enjoyed the ghost walk, I said, I really enjoyed the exercise. However, I can't understand what the ghosts are doing here. And he said, well, they don't want to go. He gave me every reason that he could think of why people heard violin music, why people saw ghosts, why people saw a shadow at the end of the tunnel. And I said, no, that's not what I mean. I said, why are these ghosts here? And he said, well, I just told you. I said, all right, let me ask you the question another way. If the original fort was 500 feet south from this location and it was rebuilt here, why are the ghosts here? And his answer,
what did he say?
I didn't know that about the fort. So, so here you've got a curator of a ghost tour that his company does 3 ghost walks a night. And he was unaware that the fort that is that he takes his groups through on a nightly basis is not the real fort that had been originally constructed in another place. So I've been trying over the years, Jeff, and maybe you can help me find an answer for this. Why would there be ghosts in this new structure?
Well, the one possibility that occurs to me is that ghosts are not necessarily static. They may be able to go where the action is, so to speak. If they see something going on somewhere else,
right,
they may actually go and check it out. There are cases of people being followed home by spirits. So the idea that a spirit is stuck to one place may be more voluntary on their part. They may be able to leave and go someplace else if they want to. They generally choose not to, because the whole point of haunting one place is because they find it comfortable, or there's something about it they want to be there. But that doesn't mean they're not capable of moving or just leaving. I mean, that's how hauntings end. All of a sudden one day the spirit is tired, has done what it's going to do,
right,
and it just walks away and it doesn't come back. So I do think ghosts may be more mobile than we imagine they are.
But what about the ability of a group of people actually convincing each other using a form of telepathy that there is something there? They can hear music, even though there's no music there, group manifestations.
Yeah, that's actually the power of suggestion. If you're in a haunted location or supposedly haunted, and you're there to look to find these things, you don't want to waste your time. You actually want to see a ghost or have some kind of a paranormal experience. I've noticed that a lot of the pictures I get from people, it's usually just some kind of a photo anomaly.
Right.
But normally somebody just died in their family, someone close to them, and they're wondering if this is the spirit of their grandma trying to get in touch with them. And so they have to have some context to understand it. Now, if they had this picture taken any other time, they'd probably ignore it. They probably wouldn't see any significance in it. So the circumstances in which you experience things has a lot to say about what you're going to experience and how you feel about it.
Based on your research into ghosts and the paranormal, Jeff, what is your opinion, or what findings have you made when it comes to orbs?
Generally, orbs are just a flash reflecting off a piece of dust, an insect. Could be a raindrops. There's a lot of different things that can get a camera to reflect. However, I do have at least one picture on my website that is very interesting to me, because it's actually an orb that's throwing its own light shadow. There's an orb that's creating a white light underneath it, which is very interesting. And it was sent to me not by someone who thought they were haunted, but by a realtor who had taken pictures of a home for sale, and this thing showed up on there. And she had no idea what it was. She just thought, "What do you think?" And so you also have to look at the context in which it was taken. If it was taken by somebody who's out in the woods at night looking for ghosts, chances are you don't take it that seriously. But when it's somebody who's just going about their business and they catch something unusual like that, I think that gives it a better pedigree, and I tend to take it a little bit more seriously. But to answer your question, I think the vast majority, probably 99% of orb shots, are in fact just dust particles. That being said, I want to tell you a story. I went to the Queen Mary a few years ago, and the swimming pool area of the Queen Mary is supposed to be haunted by a little girl, maybe several other people, okay? And that's cool, but so I had my camera, of course, and I was taking pictures.
Right.
And the thing is, I have never caught an orb in my life, okay, ever. I mean, I've taken hundreds of pictures, maybe thousands of pictures, never ever caught an orb. I came out of there with, a half a dozen orbs, and that was the only place in the ship I could catch them. I don't know why it would be any dustier than any other part of the ship, but for some reason I was getting a lot of these kinds of anomalies. I even got one in my stateroom, And I remember I have never gotten an orb before, and I didn't really expect to see one, but they were all over the place. And I wonder, why would I get an orb in a place which has, a tradition of being heavily haunted, when I've never ever gotten one anywhere else I've ever been? So if dust was the answer, why was this that one compartment dusty and no place else in the ship?
No, that's an
so
excellent
those kinds
point.
of things make me wonder.
Makes me wonder, too. Exonation, our guest this hour is Jeff DANELEK. His website is www.ourcuriousworld.com. And all Jeff's books are available on his website, and he's the author of Mystery of Reincarnation, The Case for Ghosts, Lessons from Atlantis, UFOs, The Great Debate, 2012, Extinction or Utopia, The Great Airship of 1897, The Case for Reincarnation, Phantoms of the Skies, Serpent Giganti, right? And
Serpente Gigante, yeah.
It's good. Yeah, you do a really good Italian.
Portuguese.
Oh,
yeah.
Portuguese. Okay, close enough.
Brazil.
Yeah. Okay. Nightman, Dragon Soldiers, and Friend of God. Once again, his website is ourcuriousworld.com. Jeff, is there a connection between ghosts and reincarnation?
Oh, that's a great question. It's something I've looked into. In fact, that was the impetus behind writing my ghost book. Was I wrote a book on reincarnation. I thought, could there be a link? What about those spirits? And my thought is that the ghost is really more of a residue of a once living person. It's kind of like when you die, you leave your body behind. It's somewhere. It's in a casket or something, and I think the same thing happens when we die. That ego, that personality remains as a sort of a residue, even though the soul itself may move on to its next incarnation, its next experience. That personality is still remaining behind, sort of lingering for a while. I also noticed that ghosts tend to fade out of existence after a while on their own. They might last a couple of centuries once in a while, but for the most part, they're gone within a few years, which leads you to believe that maybe they just lose energy and it just sort of fades out of existence after a while.
Do you believe in reincarnation?
I do, in fact. I actually do. In fact, I've had a past life regression where I was able to look at a couple of my past lives, and it was a really interesting experience.
I have a problem with the past life. I haven't made a decision on it yet. Some of the people we've had on the show, they tell a story that is a great case for evidence for them, for a past life. But then you get the other side of the coin, and it's like a story out of the Twilight Zone. What was it that convinced you, Jeff, that reincarnation is real?
Well, I started to look into it from a scientific standpoint. I was reading the works of Dr. Stevenson, Ian Stevenson, who was a psychiatrist who studied this subject pretty extensively for over 30 years. Mm-hmm. And what Stevenson did is he looked at conscious past life memories in children. Some of them as young as 3 or 4 years old that could recall past lives in tremendous detail. And he would examine these. He had several hundred cases that he thought were very compelling. There was some, of course, that he thought were suspicious, and he just, basically ignored those. But I read that, and I thought that was really interesting, how a child could recollect tremendous details. Even if you were coaching them, think how difficult it would be to get a 4 or 5-year-old to remember everything you told them to tell, the investigator, without a flaw. And I just thought there's something to this. And it also seemed to answer questions about my own life, my own experiences, that just all seemed to fit together once I came to take it seriously. So there was a couple of things that led me to it, but I think it was Ian Stevenson's research that was really the trigger that got me going down that road.
If you don't mind me asking you, what was your past life or your past lives that you discovered during your...
The most recent one I was apparently a German soldier during the Second World War, and I died in Russia in the early months of the war. And I look back at my teenage years, and I had a fascination with everything German. I wore these black Wellington boots, which were very much like German, boots that they wore. I took German in high school. Mm-hmm. I was fascinated with World War II, and I didn't come out of a military family, so I wasn't being coached. I just had this real, almost obsession with Germany and World War II and Russia. And once I had the past life regression, it all made sense to me. Now, someone could say, well, yeah, you had this fascination, so you just turned it into a past life memory, And I guess that's a valid concern, but the question is, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Did I have this past life memory because of my interest in World War II?
Right.
Or was my interest in World War II because of the past life memory? If that's the case, where did I get the interest from? There was no external influence on me to be interested in those subjects, but I was. So, I don't have a problem with someone who can't believe it. That's fine. But for me, it just makes a lot of sense, that we just continue on for eternity, just experiencing things in different contexts, as a man, as a woman, different races, maybe even different alien forms. Who knows?
Well, that might explain Caitlyn Jenner. Maybe Caitlyn or Bruce Jenner was a female in a previous life, and that kind of stuck with him when he came to this life. And, it must have been a battle for him internally, and maybe past lives and reincarnation can help us better understand these problems instead of pointing to a psychological deficiency or a psychological problem.
Well, there is a theory out there that people will pull traumas from past lives into the present life. So let's say you're terrified of horses, even though you've never been around one before. You're just terrified of them. Well, that could be that maybe you were killed when you got thrown off a horse in a past life. Or you're afraid of water. Maybe you drowned in a past life. Well, I think it's also true with gender identification. If you were a woman in a past life, you enjoyed being a woman, and you came back as a man, there might be a tendency to not want to give up that previous gender identity, where as a result you have transgender people, you have cross-dressers, people like that. So I think that's a point that needs to be investigated more fully. They have discovered in past life regressions that people do bounce from gender to gender. So the idea that someone is still holding on to a past gender identity is
quite possible.
Is actually a very elegant idea.
Jeff, you wrote 2 books, The Mystery of Reincarnation and The Case for Reincarnation. What's the difference between the 2 books?
Well, The Mystery, the very first book I wrote, the first half of it was some evidences for and against it, and a couple of case studies, and then the second half of the book was more about the mechanics of it. What I wanted to do was take that second half and expand on it and really go into the mechanics of reincarnation, exactly how it works, why it's doing the things it does. So really the second book was more of an expansion upon the work I had done in the first one, and that between the two of them, I think, pretty well covers the field about as extensively as I can to my level of understanding.
All right, Jeff, stand by, my friend. You and I have to take a break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation. Jeff DANELEK is our special guest this hour. www.ourcuriousworld.com. Visit his website, and at his website you'll be able to purchase his books, and we'll be talking to Jeff more about the other topics that he has written about when we return from the other side of this break, right here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't forget Exonation on Wednesday, November the 11th, part 2 of the debate between Michael Horn and Stanton T. Friedman on the Billy Meyer UFO case. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. And a programming note, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka is coming to the X Zone Broadcast Network. For more information, check out her site at thescienceofmagic.net. I'll be back with Jeff. Don't go away. Hear ye, hear ye. The king has just announced the release, no pun intended, of the latest book of comedy, The Endearing Fart by Eileen Dover, noted fartologist. The endearing fart from our butt does it does. Without it we'd all suffer inside. So let it be, release it with glee. It's not comfy or easy to hide. The social norm would have us conform to withholding our gas for decorum. I'll not be a martyr, but rather a farmer. I'll risk being thought of a moron. But noisy but free, come fart with me. Will not be shy or unyielding. A smelly toot? Who gives a hoot? It's natural, healthy, good feeling. The enduring fart is the perfect gift just for about anyone. Buy now at tinyurl.com/to-buy now. Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information, and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State-certified occupational school, training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
What if Jesus came back now and insisted that we listen to him? How would the world be different if Christians really followed the Gospels? For 2,000 years, we've been practicing a religion. Now it's finally time to get it right. Read Liberating Jesus, new from Roberta Grimes. Meet the Jesus you never knew. Roberta uses afterlife evidence and biblical analysis to prove that Jesus is exactly right. Learning the lessons that he came to teach is the reason we are born at all. Roberta says he has come back now to insist that we actually listen to him so we can begin to use his teachings to unite and transform the world. Liberating Jesus wherever books are sold. Jesus has the answers, and it's not too late. Roberta blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money in abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
Welcome back, everyone. Jeff DANELEK is our guest. www.ourcuriousworld.com. Well, Jeff, with all the books you've written, what's your next book going to be about?
Well, believe it or not, I've kind of branched into writing fiction. I like to write fictions that have a little bit of a paranormal theme to them, or spiritual themes, that kind of a thing. I do a little historical fiction. But that's kind of what I'm working on right now. Like I said, I do have a book on ghosts I have reworked and have got to do some interesting research on. I sat in some, I actually went to my first seance and sat through one of those to see what happens in a real seance.
Right.
Things like that. So that was a lot of fun. And so I think that this rework of the ghost book should be, it should make it for a much more interesting book. More useful for the ghost hunter in all of us. And so I just don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know what project the universe is going to lead me to, and I'm open to whatever it has to show me.
Tell us about the seance you attended.
Well, it wasn't what I expected, really. It was a group of about, probably 25 women in a big circle. There was like 2 or 3 guys, and the rest were all women.
Are you sure you weren't at a Tupperware party?
Well, yeah, someone did break out some Tupperware, which I thought was, But it was weird because it was at a bookstore, after hours, and we basically sat in a big circle. They don't turn all the lights out. You don't hold hands. What they do is they have a red light bulb in the middle of the room. So you can still see, what's going on. But he would just invoke, whatever spirits want to come forward, and then he would give one person a message that he believes he's getting from this spirit. He would ask maybe a couple of questions, but he would go around the room. He wasn't like concentrating on any one person. And at the end of it, I didn't really know what I thought of it. I didn't think it was trickery or anything. I didn't think there was a lot of, suspicious stuff going on. But I didn't see that there was a lot of anything going on, really. I mean, there was nothing that I thought, wow, how could he possibly have known that? Some things were, maybe he's just very insightful. I don't know. But overall, I thought it was a really interesting experience. Anybody who's ever or has never done one, and you're curious about it, you should, give it a try. Find a good, reputable person who does this and see what happens.
X-Zone Nation, Jeff DANELEK is our guest, ourcuriousworld.com. Lessons from Atlantis. After writing the book, what was your opinion about the lost continent of Atlantis?
I think that the continent was never lost. I think it's still there. The only difference is that right now it's under a couple of 100 feet of seawater. I don't believe it was actually in the Atlantic or that it was even in Europe. I believe that basically the premise, if you go back to the last great ice age, about 16,000 years ago, at the height of it, the ocean levels around the world were about 300 to 400 feet lower than they are now. Mm-hmm. That meant the entire Indonesian island chain was one big continent. China's coastline was 100 miles further out to sea, so was India's. And that would have been really the only place in the world where it was possible to grow crops, because everything else was covered by sheets of ice. It was just too, not temperate enough to live. So if there was a giant modern type of civilization in existence, that's exactly where it would have been. It would have probably been on the Indian subcontinent and present-day Indonesia. And I'm not sure exactly what happened. Something pretty serious apparently changed the weather, and the ocean levels rose. All evidence of this civilization were eventually erased, and what wasn't erased was submerged. It may still be there if you knew where to look. But that is the premise. So my take on it was a little different than most of them. Most of them just say it was either some island, off Crete, that exploded. But my take is that, no, it was referring to an actual civilization that is every bit as modern as our own, that existed at a time far before our own recorded history. And then I talk about in the book why you can't find the evidence, what happens to things when they're left to rot on their own, where all the evidence is, and what would happen to our civilization if it was to be destroyed, say, in a nuclear war. What would be left of it, 5,000 years from now? Probably nothing. You would have no idea that we were even ever here. That's how thorough nature is in destroying everything.
Yeah, a lot of people, I think, do not realize that Mother Nature one day is going to get sick and tired of the disease on her skin called humans, and she's going to make some drastic changes to get rid of the disease unless we start acting now and we're proactive in protecting the earth, the climate, our environment. Like, we're killing ourselves, basically.
Well, the longer view of this is that all of this is part of a process of growth and evolution. The Earth has gone through cycles of destruction over and over again throughout its history. And then it rebuilds everything, whether humans are here or not.
Right.
So the question is, are we really destroying things, or are we just going through part of the process for our own spiritual growth?
Now, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Believing in reincarnation, wouldn't we know what to do from the past lives that people claim they've had?
Not really, because part of the process is dependent upon forgetting most of what happened. Sometimes certain traumas will survive, but by and large, if you don't forget what happened in the last life, then all you're really doing is reliving the same life over and over again in a different body. So to really get the full effect of what you're supposed to be here to do and learn, you need to forget about what happened. And in that case, you may end up experiencing it more than once. You may experience it dozens of times, but that's okay. Just like a child learning to walk falls repeatedly, eventually it will walk. And I think humanity is in the same place as a child in learning how to walk.
But if people who have past lives are supposed to forget, what's the sense of doing it over and over and over again if you can't remember what you're doing it over and over and over again for?
Well, what you're doing is you're retaining things not on a conscious level, but you are still retaining some of the life lessons that you learned. For example, you may learn patience in the past life, and you carry that over into this life. Even though you don't recall the circumstances under which you acquired that patience, you still have it. So a lot of our personality traits, a lot of our idiosyncrasies are acquired over multiple personalities, even though we don't necessarily remember how we got there.
All right, let's talk about something that has a connection to Atlantis, well, at least the extinction part of it, 2012. Remember 2012 Exonation, when the Mayan calendar, or people believed that the Mayan calendar was giving the message that it was going to be the end of the world on December the 21st, 2012. And as you have all figured out by now, considering this is October the 21st, 2015, that it did not happen. So, Jeff, why do you think people have such a fascination with end-of-time prophecies, the end of the Mayan calendar, and all this doom and gloom?
Well, I think part of the reason for that is that people want to know what's going to happen. I think one of the biggest things that people are afraid of is the uncertainty of the future. And if you can get some sort of a mystic or a sage or a prophecy that tells you what's going to happen, I think it's very comforting to some people. They feel like they have a little degree of control they might not have had otherwise. I think that's why prophecy is so popular within religion. You see a lot of religions out there that maintain elements of prophecy in them. I actually wrote quite extensively about them in my book about 2012. And it really is just the idea that, hey, I know what's going to happen, you don't, so apparently I must be smarter than you are. I think that's a part of it, certainly.
You know, we, as you know, Jeff, we did a 26-hour live marathon that night, and when Laura and I went down to Mexico we went down in February of 2012. The Mayans laughed at the entire 2012, December 21st, 2012 doomsday. They said the only thing that they were thankful for was the amount of increase in tourism that the myth brought. And they explained to us in no uncertain terms that basically it was just taking the calendar off the wall December the 31st and putting the new one on January the 1st. That was it. So where did people get this inclination that the world was coming to an end based on a Mayan calendar?
Well, they were fed that information by so-called experts in the field. There are people who are self-styled experts. They will tell you things that they sound very credible, like they really know what they're doing. And people will accept a lot of things if you say it with enough certainty and force. You'd be surprised what people will believe. If you come right out and say, it says right there in the calendar that, the Mayans said that it was going to end. And a lot of people will say, oh, really? And I always think, don't you ever bother to check these things? Don't take people's word for it. We have a tendency, I think, to get intellectually lazy. And when someone tells us something, especially if it sounds kind of interesting or intriguing, we tend to buy it. And I think that gets us into a lot of trouble. But we never seem to ever learn that lesson, because no sooner does one end of the world prophecy pass without an incident when someone comes out a couple of months later with another one. And then it starts all over again. So I think sometimes we're our own worst enemy. I really do.
Going down your list of books, The Great Debate, UFOs. Still haven't found a UFO yet. Still haven't seen one on the White House lawn, Parliament Hill, Red Square. How come?
Well, because you're not going to see them unless they want you to see them. I think they have the technology that they can keep them. They could fly right overhead right now, and you wouldn't know it. Just like we have stealth technology. Exactly. We have stealth technology. We have the capability of keeping ourselves hidden from radar. I imagine someday we will have the ability to actually mask something physically so you can't see it. They're already working on some sort of reflective materials they can put on tanks and stuff that it bounces light off of it. You can't see it. You physically cannot see the thing sitting right in front of you. So you can imagine how valuable that would be in a war.
Sure.
And so I think that if there are extraterrestrials here and they're watching us, they're so much further advanced than we are that they could easily keep themselves hidden. So the question is then really is not why don't we see them? The question is why do we occasionally see them? If they're so good at hiding, then we should never ever see one, right? So I postulate the theory that they're conducting little experiments on our culture to see how do we react to these things. They're probably setting us up for first contact at some point. But before you do that, you want to know how we're going to respond. You don't like nasty surprises.
Yeah, but Jeff, you wrote a book called The Great Airship of 1897, and I've had people on the show who say that these visitors have been here since before recorded history. So what are they waiting for?
Well, part of it is an anthropological study. You know, if we were traveling across the stars and we came across a planet that had a civilization on it similar to our own,
right?
I think the first thing would not be to make contact. It would be to study it. How does it compare to our own? Did they go through the same steps we went through? Do all civilizations go through a set steps, or do they vary from civilization? I think that they have been watching us. They have been aware of us. But up till now, we've just been really more of a game preserve that they come to study to see what we're going to do rather than coming in here and interfering. There's also the possibility that there are races out there who are like guardians, who basically prevent other races from interfering, specifically with developing cultures. They are probably very sophisticated, very advanced, and they basically say, look, you can study these people, but you can't come down here and invade them or attack them or do any of these things without our knowledge or approval. Mm-hmm. So there's probably several things going on at once, from study to just experiments to see what we'll do.
Do you think that the governments of the world are part of a global conspiracy?
Oh, heavens no. Other than the global conspiracy to take your tax money, I don't. I think that's a very real conspiracy. But I don't think so, because I don't think you can keep something on that level secret very long. The more people that know about it, the greater the chances that it's going to be compromised.
Right.
One of the biggest secrets in history was the Manhattan Project. Mm-hmm. And even by the time they had set off the A-bomb in July of 1945, a lot of it had already been compromised. The Germans already kind of had an inkling of what we were doing, so did the Russians. And that was one of the most closely guarded secrets in American history. And so you can imagine something on the scale of flying saucers and alien contact, how many people would be involved in trying to keep that hushed up. And I just don't buy that any government could do it for long. You could do it for a short time. You might be able to keep something under your vest for a while, but it's going to come out at some point, especially once people are no longer being controlled by the government, by their oaths of secrecy. Right. Maybe they're on a deathbed or something like that. They might want to talk about it. Mm-hmm. So I just don't think it's going to happen.
My biggest proof that it's totally impossible for the government to have kept or keeping a UFO conspiracy is that here you've got. Do you remember Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky?
Vaguely, yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you can't keep that secret within the confines of the most secure building, structure in the world, without the entire world finding out within a matter of months, how in the name of God are you going to hide a crashed UFO and 3 dead aliens?
Exactly. And I think that's the big hole in the whole UFO conspiracy theories, is they never really do the mental gymnastics it takes to think this thing through. Mm-hmm. And say, really, how do you do this? And how long can you keep it up? If the Roswell thing happened in 1947, that's almost 70 years ago, and they still are keeping it concealed, I doubt it. Governments aren't that efficient or competent.
Well, plus Edward Snowden and other whistleblowers, the amount of data that is being hacked into these days. Wouldn't it be beneficial to a nation unfriendly to the United States and her allies to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt by releasing classified documents that the government of the United States or any other government friendly to the allies actually had a UFO and extraterrestrials hidden somewhere in a bunker, and in our case, Area 51?
It would be difficult to explain, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, it would take some real gymnastics to get out of that one. I really don't buy this whole conspiracy thing. I'll listen to their evidence, but
right.
I have yet to see anything that's compelling.
Wow, time goes by so fast when you're with us, my friend. Before we go, I'd just like to ask you about the book you wrote that kind of stands out of the other books. You know, you've written The Mystery of Reincarnation, The Case for Ghosts, Lessons from Atlantis, UFOs, The Great Debate, 2012, Extinction or Utopia, The Great Airship of 1897, The Case for Reincarnation, Phantoms of the Skies, Nightman, Dragon Soldiers, and then Friend of God. Kind of seems to deviate from the other themes of your other books.
Yeah, I come out of a strong evangelical Christian background. It's been a few years since I sort of explored other avenues, but that was a big part of my life for 20 years. And I wanted to write essentially a historical novel that was speculating about what really happened during that week of the crucifixion from Judas Iscariot's perspective. Why he did it. And that was one of those books that sort of wrote itself. It's almost like I just set out the parameters of what I wanted to do.
Right.
And the universe or whatever just put the words together. And it was it's one of the books I'm most proud of and probably is the least read of any of them that I've produced. But it's basically just, in a nutshell, the story of the Passion of Christ as told from Judas Iscariot's perspective.
He wasn't the bad guy in this entire scene, was he?
I don't believe so. In the story, I think he's actually he thinks he's helping Jesus. He's helping him actually find the courage to declare himself the Messiah. I think that Judas's problem was that he had such confidence in Jesus that he ended up putting him into a compromising situation where that killed him.
Yeah.
Trying to, in effect, help him.
I know that Judas Iscariot was against Mary Magdalene, because here you've got Judas, who was the treasurer of the group, and he couldn't understand why the group was having to pay for her way as well.
Well, it's a very patriarchal society, so I imagine most of the disciples had issues with Mary Magdalene. But
Right.
in my book, she plays a major role. She's actually a very important disciple to all of them. So.
Hey, Jeff, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, my friend. It's always great talking to you. Let our listeners know how they can find out more about you and where they can get your books.
Well, you've been saying all night, ourcuriousworld.com. I also have a second website if you would like to look at some of my writings about religion, reincarnation, and spirituality at questforspirit.org. That's quest, the number 4, and the word spirit.org. And I would welcome any kind of give and take that you might want to do. I have an email set up for each of them, and let me know what you think.
Jeff DANELEK, take care of yourself, my good friend, and I look forward to the next time you join us back here in the X Zone.
I do, too. Thanks a lot, Rob. You have a good one.
You too, buddy. Once again, X Zone Nation, Jeff DANELEK has been our guest of this hour, www.ourcuriousworld.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break at the top of the hour with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.